Hey, welcome to the Lead Up Podcast. I'm your host and publisher, Mike Harbour. Excited that you're joining me back on another episode where we're talking about quit losing talent. I'm going to be teaching right from my book, Quit Losing Talent, the expanded edition. This is episode 428. We're going to be talking about the STAY blueprint to keep your employees for employee engagement. And I'm going to give you a ton of information. If you take notes today, you'll be able to go back and implement in your own leadership, in your own team, in your own culture, your own organization to begin to keep those employees that you most want to keep. We're going to share some proven strategies with you that we take in to our customers, our clients, to help them build elite leaders, elite retention programs, and help them do the most important thing today, and that's retention. Retain those employees that help make our organizations rock and roll. Let me ask you a question. What's the cost of for your team, for your organization in replacing 100 employees this year? Because if your leaders aren't equipped, that's what's going to happen. Now, you may not be a large organization where you're going to lose 100 people, but what's the cost of 20? What's the cost of 10? The smaller organization you are, the harder that cost hits you. It's a bigger number the bigger organization you are, but it hits you much harder when you're a smaller organization. So what we're going to talk about today are some things you can do, you can implement as a leader to help you begin to keep people longer, keep them satisfied, keep them engaged in your organization. Here's the reality. If you're a healthcare organization, a large healthcare organization, that turnover alone, those 100 employees is at a minimum $5 million. $5 million. And so when we work with clients, we help them cut that number at least by 15%, if not more. I've helped clients cut that as much as 68% in about 10, 12-month period in some hard to fill and hard to keep type of roles. So now more than ever, retaining your top talent is an essential priority. Employees, talent today is looking for growth, recognition, purpose, connection to values, connection to a mission that means something more than ever, and failing to provide these things will result in turnover, costly turnover. So that's why this episode is focused on helping you build a talent-locked culture where people will stay, a culture where your best employees are feeling engaged, valued, and invested in for the long haul. So we're going to break this conversation into 3 actionable steps for you today. One's the STAY program, blueprint for employee engagement. We'll discuss how to implement and optimize a robust personal and professional development process to retain top talent. And the second thing we're going to talk about is praising tactically to cultivate loyalty and motivation. We'll uncover the art of delivering praise that resonates deeply and positively impacts morale and commitment. And then the third thing I'm going to share with you is equity over equality. This is a modern approach to retaining talent. And so we're going to review some strategies that promote a fair and inclusive workplace where everyone can thrive. So grab a pen, grab some paper, take some notes. Let's go. Here's part number 1 that we're going to start with. The STAY program, this blueprint for employee engagement. When we lose employees, what happens in most organizations is we often focus on the point of their exit. We try to save them, but retention really starts way before then. Even in my release strategy, most of those tactics in the release strategy are really retention strategies. But it begins how we engage and invest in them daily. I even teach a tactic called Master the Welcome, which we're not going to talk about today. I've taught about that on the podcast before. You can go back and do a search for Mastering the Welcome. But that STAY engagement philosophy begins at the very beginning of even before they start working for you. It's a powerful way to formalize this through what we call the STAY program. Now, let me talk to you about what STAY stands for. In my book, where you can grab a copy on Amazon, Quit Losing Talent, the expanded edition. On page 18, here's how I love using acrostics. So STAY, S-T-A-Y, stands for systematic. The process that you need to implement, you need to put in place that we teach, it needs to be systematic, meaning if you're not there one day, someone else can follow the system. It's a system that we implement with every employee, every new employee, every existing employee. If it's a system, it's easily implemented. The T is it's got to be transferable. What are we trying to transfer? We're trying to transfer values, culture, habits, institutional knowledge. These things need to be transferable. We often don't think about those things. It needs to be the achievement oriented, like it helps people achieve mastery. You want those employees to achieve mastery. They want to achieve mastery. They want to be better. They want to grow. And then it needs to be you-focused, which means it's individualized. Some of those pieces need to be individualized for the individual so they excel based on who they are and their strengths around what your organizational and cultural needs are. So the QLT framework, Quit Losing Talent framework, emphasizes that growth drives commitment. And so when employees see that their workplace invests in their development, they're far more likely to stay loyal and engaged. So I'm going to give you 3 tips here to apply this STAY blueprint today. Tip number one is structured growth plans. Start by creating an IDP. You've heard that term before. It's an individual development plan for every employee. These should align with their career aspirations and with company goals. How do you do that? Well, you got to spend time getting to know them. You got to know what your company goals are, what your team goals are, but you need to spend time getting to know them and how you can help grow them and connect those together. Help them see the future that they can grow into. Customizing these plans shows your dedication to their progress as a leader. They'll remain loyal to you. And when hopefully you've experienced a leader that's done this for you, and you probably still think about that leader today. So tip number one is structured growth plans. Number 2 is ongoing coaching and mentorship. It's not enough just to create that growth plan. Now look, here's what I know. The reality is many of us set goals at the beginning of the year. We call them resolutions. And by the 2nd, 3rd week, we've completely forgot about them. You can't do that with your employees. If you want them to be engaged, you need to be a mentor for them, or you need to have a mentoring program. You need to assign a mentor. And what I call with new employees, I call this mentor the STAY navigator. So in that first 90-day runway, when you hire a new employee, they've got a STAY navigator. That's that mentor. It's someone tasked with ongoing development and guiding of their growth plan over that first 90 days. But we need to have this forever, for the lifetime of our employees. It's much like a coach. And this enables the employees to receive both feedback and encouragement consistently to let them know they're doing a great job. Tip number 3, celebrate small milestones. Look, we have to quit being the leader that only points out what they're not doing right. You need to intentionally find ways, be curious. I call it curiosity leadership. Find ways to be curious about how they're living out your values, how they're exceeding the status quo. Retention doesn't depend on huge leaps. It grows in small, incremental wins. Whether it's completing a training program or leading a meeting successfully for the first time, call out and celebrate these milestones with and for your employees. They'll buy into you and your leadership. Look, John Maxwell teaches this. People buy into the leader before they buy into the vision. This is a way that they'll buy into you, by you celebrating them and helping them grow and putting pieces in place that encourage and coach them up to that next level. Peter Senge said this. He said, people with high levels of personal mastery are continually expanding their ability to create the results in life they truly seek. So you as a leader, if you want to be a high-level leader, you've got to Master yourself first so that you can help expand the ability of other people. My personal mission statement is to lift others to their full potential. That's just a kind of a paraphrase of that. To take off my own title, my own crown, and bring out the best in others. That's what high-level leaders do. That's your number one responsibility as a leader. So when you're creating structured opportunities for mastery to get people to stay, you're offering employees the roadmap to success. And that's what keeps people loyal. That's what makes them stay within your organization. It's not a pay raise. I'm not saying pay isn't important. It is. But if we're paying fairly, and the organization competition down the street's paying fairly, what's going to determine whether they stay with you or jump ship? It's that connection to a greater cause of growth in their own life. Let's look at the second piece I want to talk to you around the stay culture, this blueprint. Praising tactically to cultivate loyalty and motivation. What do we mean by tactical? It has to resonate deeply with the employees and reinforces the behaviors, the attitudes, and the results that the organization values. And here's my experience. Praise is often overlooked, and it's so easy. Jim Rohn once said, what's easy to do is also easy not to do. This is why I teach this philosophy of curiosity leadership. You should be walking around curious every day, not for problems, but for things they're doing well, where you see good behavior, good attitude, things that people are doing really well. And make note of those things. And sometimes you're going to praise those in the moment. Sometimes you're going to make note of those and use those in a team meeting or a one-on-one meeting. So here are 3 ways that that you can elevate your praise. Number 1 is praise specifically and sincerely. I call this STP. Maybe you'll remember the old oil commercials, STP, but specific, timely, and personal. So praise specifically, timely, and personal. Instead of vague, great job, hey, you did a great job, explain exactly what they did. Be specific about what they did well. Now, in my book, I talk about the 3 types of toxic praise. Vague praise is one of those. What we don't want to do is create a toxic praise environment. So you need to, I've taught that before. You might want to grab a copy of my book to learn how to stay away from those 3 types of toxic praise. But here's an example of specificity. Your report simplified a highly complex topic. And because of that, we were able to make a confident decision quickly. You made a direct impact. See, that specificity shows that you're paying attention. You're curious. You can praise them for things that they do well and not just, hey, great job on that thing, whatever that thing is. Be specific, be timely, be personal. The second tip here is recognize effort, not just results. Look, we aren't always in charge of the results, like the bottom line, like overall productivity or overall customer service. I think about in healthcare, I can have an employee on my team that does an unbelievable job as it relates to the customer experience. But somewhere downstream in that healthcare value chain, someone screws it up. And so we get a bad review from the customer. And so I'm not always in charge of the end result, but I'm in charge of my attitude, my effort right in that moment. So not every success needs to be a huge achievement to deserve recognition. Call out the effort, the attitude, or the courage it took to attempt something new, even if it didn't go perfectly, or even if the end result somewhere downstream wasn't what we were wanting. I can praise that employee specifically for what they did really well in that moment. That reinforces a growth mindset. If we only come back and say, hey, the customer experience scores are terrible, we got to do better, then I'm pointing out the negative, and they can't really always control that. Now, if they're ultimately responsible for all of that, certainly we've got work to do to train up and teach and coach and mentor those individuals. Let's look at the third piece here is public and private recognition. Okay, I'm a big believer in praising people in public, criticizing them, coaching them up in private. Sometimes it's a quiet thank you in a one-on-one meeting. Other times it's a shout out in front of the whole team. You want to use both approaches strategically to amplify the impact of your praise. I do want to caution you here though. Know your employees. Some people do not like being celebrated in public. Some people desire to be celebrated in public. Know your employees individually so you know where that praise needs to be delivered. That's very important. Ken Blanchard said, catch people doing something right and praise them for it. It's simple to do. It's also simple not to do, as Jim Rohn said. I'm just challenging you as a leader to find the simple things you can do and implement that in your leadership. When your praise is authentic and thoughtful, it reminds your employees you're not just clocking in. They're not just clocking in. We're not just walking around doing a job. We're contributing to something meaningful. And you help them realize that by tactically praising the things that you need to praise them for. Let's look at one more thing that I said I was going to share with you today. Equity over equality. This is not a DEI lesson. DEI has gotten distorted, and I don't really want to talk about the whole DEI mess that has been created around the world, really. What I want to talk about is equity over equality, this kind of modern day approach to retaining talent. Here's the truth leaders cannot ignore. Fair doesn't mean equal. Fair doesn't mean equal. I'm not a fan, even when I go into organizations that have a value of fair or fairness. It's so hard to achieve. What keeps high-performing, diverse teams engaged is equity, providing tailored resources and opportunities so that every individual can contribute and thrive. What equity means is that I look for ways to give everybody a chance to win, everybody a chance to get better, everybody a chance to grow. That may mean I've got to remove some obstacles for one person where another person on the team can remove those obstacles themselves. See, as a leader, this is where I need to get engaged. Maybe I have an employee that has a handicap and someone else on the team doesn't have that. I've got to make sure I remove obstacles for someone that doesn't have all of the same faculties that someone else has, but so that they can be successful. That's what equity means, is creating an environment where everybody on the team has a chance at success, at growth, at accomplishing big things. In the Quit Losing Talent framework, we emphasize that equity builds trust by meeting employees where they are. It focuses on their unique life situations and their individual career paths rather than treating everyone the same. That's what equity is we provide a culture, an environment for individuals to succeed, not expecting everybody to succeed because we're treating them the same. So how can you do that? Here's number one, assess individual needs. Like, know the individual, get to know them, how they think, where they need development and growth. Not every employee starts from the same place. I mean, everybody's got a story. You've got a story. I've got a story. Everybody has a story, and they have prior experience. They've had access to training, or maybe not. Time constraints. Maybe they're a single parent. Maybe they have a family member they've got to take care of at home. All of these things we should know so that we can create an environment where they have a chance to succeed as well. Tip number two, fair advancement opportunities. Ensure that everyone has a clear path toward growth. But recognize that what works for one person may not work for another. Offer alternative avenues to success for people. This is going to help create loyalty and retention. Look, I'm a works-based leader. I believe that we should earn our way forward, but that is going to be dependent on the individual as well. We need to create a path where those individuals can earn their way forward, not make it the same path for every same person. And then the third piece is we want to build an inclusive culture. What does that mean? It just means creating an environment where employees from all walks of life have a chance. They feel heard. They've got a voice at the table. Their opinion matters. They feel empowered to make decisions. We want to actively invite their input and then act on it. That's a surefire way to build equity-based trust and teams that rock and roll. Maya Angelou once said, "People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." I love that quote. See, equity creates a workplace where employees feel seen, supported, connected to the mission. That's a key ingredient to long-term retention. These are simple things to do, leaders. My question is are you doing the simple things? What's simple to do is also simple not to do. Retention takes hard work. It's not a pizza party, popcorn party, snow cone party. I mean, those things are nice, but that's not what truly retains people. When you invest in engagement through personalized growth, celebrate with your people, tactically praise them, foster equity, you're creating a culture where top talent will not leave you. Unless they just have to, like they have to move, or there's no promotion opportunities within your organization, so they have to leave. I'm not saying this is 100% foolproof. But when you do these things, you'll stop the outflow of talent that is so desperately needed by your team today. So let me recap real quick. Build an individual growth plan to create a stay culture where people stay. Leverage tactical praise to keep morale and motivation high. And then commit to equity over equality by meeting your employees where they are. Hey, if you found today's episode insightful, share it with your colleagues, share it with your boss, share it with your organization, share it with the world out on social media. Give us a review on your favorite listening platform. Go to YouTube. You can watch the video. If you're listening to this, we also post these on our YouTube channel. Leave us a comment there. But we, more than anything, help others grow by sharing this with them. I'll leave you with a thought from Peter Drucker. He said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. If you want to create a retention culture, get started now. Hey, we'll see you on the next episode of the Lead Up Podcast. I am so grateful that you continue to tune in and listen. I hope you'll come back and continue to grow with us.